Hi, good afternoon. I'm between you and I guess the end of the session. I'll wait just for a second for my take. So we've heard a lot about now various elements of IT infrastructure, the data center, our vision of the next generation data center, security. We spent some time on cloud, what is cloud and how it translates into business strategies for service providers. So what I'm going to try and do is bring some of these elements together and give some sense of conclusion. So I'm specifically going to talk about IT infrastructure transformation and spend a few minutes on what is IT infrastructure transformation, why we do it, and then talk a little bit about the key levers that drive IT infrastructure transformation and a practical roadmap how to achieve IT infrastructure transformation. So before we look at that, what do you think we mean by IT infrastructure transformation? Why are we contemplating IT infrastructure transformation? So if you think about the kind of messaging we get from business today, you're all, I assume, working in IT. So what kind of message do you get from business? I see people from various levels. So one key thing that seems to come is, it is no longer enough to have applications and routers and firewalls. Business wants really to see the business value from it. And if you see, today, you've heard this many times, that change is the only constant, right? So what it means is our businesses today are in a very challenging environment. The business environment is very dynamic, very demanding. There have been several, financial crises. So there is now a great focus on the relevance, business relevance. There are no longer, large investments that can be approved. All IT investment needs to have relevance for business. It needs to drive business benefit. Otherwise, it is, increasingly it is going to be questioned. Nobody wants to invest in IT because it's a fashionable concept, right? So some of the things we see today, the challenges in front of a business environment. We have a dynamic environment. We have a need to differentiate. Some time back, I think during the cloud session, there was an example of Gmail. Google as essentially a crowdsourced provider. But there are so many online email applications, right? There was Hotmail, Yahoo Mail, our own Rediff Mail. But why is Gmail perceived to be on the top? What really differentiates it? And if anything, if I was to name only one thing, it is their ability to innovate. So the business environment today demands differentiation. There's a danger of easily becoming a me too, a commoditized offering. So IT needs to be at the forefront of innovation. It needs to clearly understand business pressure and be relevant to business. So now how does this affect IT? What is the from here, what can we take as guiding principles for IT infrastructure? And when I say IT infrastructure, I mean large infrastructures where a lot of investment has gone in. There is a mix of legacy. You have, if any of you have worked in server room environments, one thing is, that after a few months, or if you're very planned, then maximum of 1 year, the server room at the backside, it's a bunch of pigtails, and you need an annual or a 6-monthly cleanup just to get a handle on your server, right? And if you extend this to the entire large complex IT infrastructure, you periodically need to have reconciliation and audit kind of attempt just to know what is there. The very frequent experience from sysadmins is, hey, what is this box doing in my server room? Nobody knows what that does. So, see, the IT infrastructure transformation, what it tries to do is move away from this mental model of components, boxes, and pieces to a layer that provides business service. Some of the key benefits that an IT infrastructure transformation wants to drive. In the short run, what you immediately target are cost benefits. You want to have, attack areas where the spending is happening. You want to reconcile. You want to, do baseline reviews of your. You want to do baseline reviews of your IT spending. You want to optimize your sourcing strategies. And in general, in the short run, what transformation gives as an immediate benefit are cost savings. But in the long run, what it does is, it tries to optimize your use of IT assets. It tries to, take you towards this goal of IT becoming more relevant to business. And this is the difficult stuff, when you are trying to optimize the efficiency, when you are trying to redesign your entire IT infrastructure for high performance. These are long gestation projects, and you need to have a very clear view of the business case, why you are doing something, and when exactly you're going to start seeing the payback from that. We have covered some of these in the earlier sessions. We've talked about the next generation data center, we've talked about the cloud. So these are essentially the key levers for transforming your IT infrastructure. I will not brain this slide. We've spent a lot of time now on the data center, the cloud. But to pick out a few, let me choose green IT. So earlier, green IT was more like a visionary concept. But then people realized that investing in green IT is actually going to drive savings on recurring cost items. Energy usage. If you commit to an energy usage, it is a recurring cost. And green IT initiatives usually end up in providing you recurring savings. So let me dive a little deeper into these key levers. The next generation data center we talked about, and essentially we're talking about a pooled environment where you can bring together and integrate heterogeneous resources. The key thing here is to provide a kind of orchestration. So again, the next generation data center is not about a lot of infrastructure components. It is about orchestrating these so that you have a layer which can provide, for example, provide on-demand service. What we call that elastic service. And it essentially is service-oriented. It looks at the business processes and tries to provide service oriented to the business. If you see the network, our legacy is that our networks grow incrementally as the business expands and as new technologies come in. Over a period of time, the network becomes a very complex, heterogeneous kind of environment. But today the trend in most major businesses, let me take the example of telecom, is to try and have a convergence, a homogeneous network which is easier to manage, which is easier to orchestrate and provision. In telecom, for example, once you go from your handset to the nearest tower, the vision is that from that, the entire backend past the radio access network is going to be IP. Flat IP RAN is what we call it. And if you look at the workplace, for example, today many of you in your company will see single sign-on initiatives, for example. So this is, we believe, a milestone in actually the journey towards a unified identity, where your identity is you, and using a set of security credentials, you identify yourself, whether it is your applications, whether it is your phone, whether it is your workplace environment, be what may. You do not have a file somewhere locked away with multiple username and passwords. We also have a huge number of places where our information is fragmented. So the trend again is to integrate these, to have a meta layer which does not, which empowers you not to worry about where your underlying information is, and collaborative technologies, so that you can seamlessly work with people no matter where they are, which time zone they are in. It lets you transcend location features of your team. Okay, so we've talked about many of these IT service components. Whether it is your collaboration workspace environment, whether it is your security services, whether it is your automation services, whether it is cloud services. But the key thing is that all these, when you want to do an IT infrastructure transformation, they need to bubble up to a business service layer. Using orchestration, what you want to do is you want to integrate these to a business service layer, which then focuses on serving business processes. So this is more or less the vision for the next generation IT infrastructure. How to transform the infrastructure of today into a more seamless integrated whole, which is more aligned towards business services. And the next thing to talk about, I guess, is what is a seamless, smooth way to get there. So, in this context, Accenture is one of the largest providers of services that allow people to transform their existing IT. We provide strategy services where you can figure out the best roadmap, for example. We provide strategy consulting services in IT strategy, mergers and acquisitions, your sourcing strategy. We provide consulting in enterprise architecture. We provide cloud strategy consulting. We have multiple offerings for empowering IT transformation efforts. We have one of the best practices as far as the IT operating model and making it more efficient goes. And in each segment of the IT infrastructure, Accenture is one of the global leaders when it comes to service offerings. So, whether it is your server optimization or transforming of your data center, whether it is security services, whether it is IT service excellence, we provide some of the most robust services, consulting, and ongoing outsourcing in these areas. And to put it all together in one slide, this looks very complicated, and I'm not going to drain it element by element. But what we do is we have a very, shall I say, proven methodology to do this. So, we have a flow of strategizing about how to transform your IT, and then we have a methodical. We've heard talk about the Accenture delivery methods. So these are essentially proven, practice-driven processes. So these are baseline on things like CMM and ITIL and so on. But these basically have gained from our experience, and these are crystallized into methodologies that help us solution strategize and then solution transformation. So this is my very brief coverage of IT transformation, IT infrastructure transformation, and I'd rather spend some time now on hearing from you if questions or. But before I open the floor to questions. I mentioned, that we're trying to move away from the view of IT infrastructure as just boxes and applications and piecemeal components to a whole. So here's the thing: there's a guy walking along the street, and he met a man working hard, hammering away at a stone. So he asked him, "What are you doing?" So the guy looks up and says, "Can't you see? I'm chipping a stone." So he walks a few paces forward. There's another guy who's doing the same thing. So the guy stops again and asks him, "What are you doing?" So this time the guy answers, "I'm building a cathedral." So the second guy actually had a more holistic view of what his team was involved in. And that I guess is the sense of what our teams really carry with them when they work on these transformation or large IT infrastructure projects. They are working with the cathedral. So with that, I open the floor to questions. No, I just want to make sure people in the back can hear you.
Yeah. Actually, I have a question. Like in previous sessions, we have attended regarding the data center and cloud computing. My question is that now, as the cloud computing is booming and taking over the market, so what is the future of data center? As you are putting so much effort, setting up the next generation data center. So, what is the life time for the data center?
Okay, good question. If you recall some of the material we covered during the cloud session, the cloud by itself is not a technology or a piece of technology. So believe me, the data center is not going to go there. The cloud is actually more a model, a way of thinking about IT services. So in the old model, what you do is you need a service, you buy a server, you buy the sysadmin, you want an application, you either buy the package or you get it built, you have a team that services it, and so on and so forth. The cloud model essentially says that you can buy these services off a storefront. That it is a conceptual model more than anything else. So the data center is not going away. It will evolve. It will become easier to manage. It will play a larger role. It will serve clients in a more seamless and elastic manner. But the data center is going to remain at the heart of IT infrastructure. There seems to be some post-lunch factor creeping in here. Come on guys, you can ask me some easy questions. I don't intend to use the remaining 10 minutes, doesn't look like. Yeah. Anybody else wants to, let me throw the floor to my colleagues. Anybody wants to add something?
How do you answer this question?
Sure.
How do you quantify this transformation? Do you want to quantify the revenue of customer?
Brilliant question. So, see, the first stage of transformation, which is the easy part, the short-term part, is all about cash payback, the low-hanging fruit. So when you baseline your IT investment and compare it with a global benchmark, say you're in a pharma company or a telecom company, so the global spends, and we work with thousands of clients in each industry, so we can immediately tell you that look, your 6% budget, IT budget, that is the first cause of worry. Global best practice is 5.2%. And then we delve deeper, ultimately we are a very delivery-oriented, detail-oriented set of people. So we will drill down and figure out where is it that we are spending more. That is the low-hanging fruit. So in transformation, you take it in steps, right? In the first step, you basically want to figure out where is the key waste happening. Where all can you save? Where can you, it is better to outsource. So you look at sourcing strategies. You look at, your cost of acquisition of services. Maybe you're buying the wrong set of services. Maybe your vendor mix is flawed. Maybe, there are a bunch of ways you can look at immediate cost savings and bringing you pretty much in line with global best practices. The longer term offering, which is in my mind more interesting, is to really figure out what is it that your business wants from your infrastructure and how will you optimize over the long run. It is very easy to show by doing this optimization savings in the first year. That is going to be a tough fact to repeat year after year, right? So that can only happen when you have a longer term vision of how IT is going to support the business, what are the key things we must do, what are my major recurring costs, building up the business case, for example, something like green IT. Green IT eventually drives down energy usage costs. It figures out whether you want to just lease a data service or whether you want to build your own data center, and so on and so forth. So when you play that longer term game, you do the same thing but over a 10 year. You optimize, but you can't do that optimization on the first year. The first year you've got to go in and benchmark and drive short term cost savings.